the Rambler Network.
Hello, welcome back to Casablanca. In this episode, I'm covering The Cable Guy, which is a 1996 comedy horror directed by Ben Stiller, written by Lou Holtz Jr., and starring Jim Carrey, Mathew Broderwick, Leslie Mann, and Jack Black. This movie has 1 foot in comedy and 1 foot in horror. And the only reason it doesn't topple into full-blown psychological thriller territory is because of the guy at its center, Jim Carrey. Alright, let's start with the cast, because The Cable Guy was kind of a time capsule. It's packed with people who were either right on the edge of stardom or still rising through the "hey, I know that face" ranks. You've got Mathew Broderwick, post-Ferris Bueller but pre-90s career boost, playing the lead, Steven, whose only real mistake was trying to get free cable. Broderwick does his job well here. He's the audience's anchor, the normal guy whose life is slowly overtaken by a weirdo in a jumpsuit. But the real fun is in the supporting cast. There's Leslie Mann, years before Knocked Up and her reign as Apatow in VP. By the way, Apatow was a producer on this film, so they were working together longer than we thought. There's Jack Black in a glorified sidekick role, pre-Tenacious D explosion. Kathy Griffin shows up for a brief flashback scene as the Cable Guy's mother, where you can't see her face, but her voice is unmistakable. Bob Odenkirk as Broderwick's brother, Andy Dick as the Medieval Times host, and even Owen Wilson shows up for one scene. He gets absolutely wrecked in the bathroom, but hey, he's there. And then behind the camera, directed by Ben Stiller, who also appears in a Dateline-style subplot as twin brothers with a disturbingly dark past. It's weird, it's satirical, and it would have been a great standalone short. But that's Stiller, juggling tone before most audiences knew he could. Now let's talk about Jim Carrey, because The Cable Guy only works because of him. And only because of him. Imagine anyone else in that role. Literally anyone. If you gave the script to, say, John Malkovich, horror movie. If you gave it to Steve Buscemi, still a horror movie. Heck, even Robin Williams would have made it too tragic to be funny. But Jim Carrey brings this almost cartoonish elasticity to the role. His character, Chip Douglas, though that's probably not even his real name, he's terrifying. He's manipulative, gaslights people, gets people arrested, stages assaults, breaks into homes, emotionally blackmails his way into people's lives. That is not a comedy premise. That's a Lifetime original movie. And yet, Carrey takes all of that and filters it through his signature goofball energy. He gives us a character who's both menacing and kind of pathetic. He's desperate for connection, and a pop culture Frankenstein stitched together from reruns, catchphrases, and 90s TV references. He's emotionally stunted, but it's not malicious. He genuinely doesn't know how to relate to people in a normal way. That makes him dangerous, yes, but also tragic, which makes the movie weirdly sad. Which makes it kind of funny in a weird loop. The Cable Guy is a balancing act. On paper, it's a dark comedy, but tonally, it's all over the place. And that's what makes it fascinating. There are scenes that feel lifted from Single White Female, or even Cape Fear. Chip fighting Steven at medieval times, using a halberd like he's jousting for affection. The karaoke scene where he tears the room apart with Somebody to Love. eyes wide, sweat flying, clinging to the mic like it's a lifeline. These moments should be terrifying. And in a way, they are. But we laugh because it's Jim Carrey. Because he knows how to walk that fine line where you're not sure if you should laugh or run. The ambiguity is the whole point. Ben Stiller and Lou Holtz Jr. weren't making a mainstream comedy. They were trying to say something about loneliness, about dependency, and how media warps our relationships. And they disguised it as a Jim Carrey movie. That bait and switch made audiences in 1996 uncomfortable. They wanted Ace Ventura 3. They got Taxi Driver and a tool belt. Another thing the cable guy doesn't get enough credit for, just how eerily ahead of its time it was. Beneath all that slapstick and stalker vibes, the movie quietly predicts a world where we live in now, a world shaped by the internet. There's that chilling monologue from Chip that he gives twice, once at the beginning and again near the end, where he's ranting about the future. Soon, every American home will integrate their television, phone, and computer. You'll be able to visit the Louvre on one channel or watch female mud wrestling on another. You can do your shopping at home or play Mortal Kombat with a friend in Vietnam. There's no end to the possibilities. At the time, it sounded unhinged. Now, that's just a Tuesday. The film came out in 1996, 2 years before Google, nearly a decade before smartphones. Online gaming was still in its infancy, shopping from your couch felt futuristic, and streaming was still something you said about water. But somehow, this movie saw the writing on the wall. It wasn't just poking fun at media addiction. It was warning us about the digital isolation that comes with constant connection. Chip wasn't just someone shaped by TV. He was a preview of what happens when entertainment becomes your entire reality. And in 2025, we're all a little bit Chip, whether we like it or not. When it came out, the cable guy was a critical question mark. Audiences didn't know what to do with it. Carrey got paid a record-breaking $20 million for the one role. Wild at the time. And people expected a gut-busting comedy. Instead, they got a weird, dark little character study with satellite dishes and lisp jokes. But over time, the cable guy has earned a kind of cult respect. It's a blueprint for future dark comedies. And it paved the way for movies like Observe and Report, or even Nightcrawler, films about unstable loners who think they're the protagonist when they're really the antagonist in someone else's story. Carrey himself has said that it was one of the most misunderstood performances of his career, and honestly, he's not wrong. It's a time capsule of 90s fears about technology, isolation, the creeping blur between entertainment and real life. It just happens to be delivered with a lot of lisping, quoting Star Trek, and over-the-top facial contortions. So if you haven't seen The Cable Guy in a while, or if you've never seen it at all, it's worth revisiting, not just as a weird blip in Jim Carrey's comedy resume, but as a bizarre, risky, and ultimately fascinating experiment in tone. It's a movie that shouldn't work, and depending on your taste, maybe it doesn't, but it's a movie you remember even if you only see it once, and that counts for something. This concludes our broadcast today. Click.
The Rambler Network.